Hi, my name is Amanda Rood, and I'm Jason's wife, and I'm going to host his podcast today. And I've gotten together with three wonderfully wise women, and we are going to discuss the topic of homeschooling. So we are going to begin with just some short introductions, our names, and just a quick summary of our homeschooling experiences, and then we'll go from there. So as I mentioned, my name is Amanda. Jason and I, we have 4 kids ranging in age from 3 to 9, and we are currently homeschooling our 3rd grader and our 1st grader.
My name's Nichole, and we've been homeschooling for about 8 or 9 years. My husband and I have 4 kids ranging from 3 years old up to 12 years old. So currently I'm homeschooling my 2nd, 4th, and 6th graders.
I'm Selena Swanson. I have been homeschooling for 17 years now. Doesn't seem that long. But right now I'm homeschooling 3 kids. I have an 8th grader, a 5th grader, and a 3rd grader. And I'm not going to count the virtual student at home who's in 10th grade, but we do help him too.
Mm-hmm. And my name is Jo, and I'm actually done homeschooling. Made it to the finish. I, in total, homeschooled for 24 years. We have 6 children, so that explains a lot of it. So they're all grown up. I finished homeschooling when my daughter graduated in spring of 2016. So it's been 4 years since we were done, and some various experiences with that, but yeah, that's kind of the overview of ours.
Awesome. Okay, now we have some questions just to kind of get us started on kind of the history and personal decisions behind why we chose to homeschool. And so if there's anything that you'd like to share on the basis of why you and your husband chose to homeschool and how you thought through that decision or what led you to that decision. So feel free to chime in whenever.
Well, I can just say that I talked to my husband this morning, and I was asking him for the quote that he always says to everybody, whether they have kids in public school, Christian school, or they homeschool. And he says that every good student is homeschooled, no matter where they go to the school. So that's kind of the approach we've taken in encouraging people, is that everybody is homeschooled because their parents are involved to some extent.
We actually weren't really considering homeschooling when we got married. Personally, I was at the time kind of against it. I had a brother who was homeschooled in high school for various reasons, and at the time I was in college going to school to be a teacher, and I just only kind of knew, I didn't have a lot of experience around homeschooling families and just kind of knew the stereotypical what you thought of a homeschool child, and so I was pretty against homeschooling. So we did know that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom with our kids. So when we had our daughter, I started staying home, and when she got to be about preschool age, I thought, well, I was an early childhood education teacher and special ed teacher. I can, I'm just going to teach her preschool at home. I enjoyed being home with her, and so I started doing just some preschool stuff with her, and then as we started talking to friends in our kind of group of friends, we realized a lot of them were considering homeschooling, and we just had never really thought about it. And so we just kind of felt that we should consider all options, and for us, praying about all options was kind of a good idea, and whether it was going to be public school or Christian school or homeschooling, and we just kind of felt guided to homeschool from there. So that's kind of how we got there.
Yeah, I mean, way back when we were, even when we were first married, and we were in our sister church in Ames in the early 80s, and I'm not even sure homeschooling was legal then, but that's when we first became acquainted with people who were homeschooled, probably Jason's parents were
Right.
among them, and so it seemed very strange to us. But when we got married and, it became apparent, our desire was for me to stay home with the children, and it became more and more familiar. Yeah, there's a verse, I think most of us just heard it in church last Sunday from Proverbs 22 that says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old he will not depart from it. Not that this means you need to homeschool, but it was a way that we could instill our values, have our children with us, at least in the early years, more than with their peers or anyone else. And so, yeah, as we investigated it more, we're around more people that did homeschool, and I'm a reader and a researcher, and at the time there was no internet, so I was reading a lot of books, especially by this couple who, I don't even know if people read their books anymore, but Dr. Raymond Moore and his wife, Dorothy, they were kind of considered the grandparents of modern homeschooling. And so, yeah, I read a lot of their stuff, and it just seemed to make sense to us. And so that's kind of how the process we took.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Jason, his parents homeschooled, so we're, I'd say, second generation homeschooling.
Okay.
And I did not grow up being homeschooled. I went to public school my whole life, and so when Jason and I were dating, that was a topic of conversation that came up, and he said that he would really like to try homeschooling his children. And when you're in the stages of first love, you just agree to whatever. So I thought, oh sure, of course I will. Like, that'll be wonderful. And so we had kids right away, and we had also decided that we wanted me to stay home, so that was kind of a natural thing. And then when it got time to decide what we were going to do for schooling, I was reminded of that conversation of homeschooling, and it just kind of seemed to just naturally just work. I felt like when they're young, it was really easy to incorporate just things naturally, and it was also the idea of, our oldest is Max, and the idea of sending Max away for like any chunk of time during the day was like really, like, I was like, oh, I don't want anyone else to have that privilege of spending that much time with him. I don't know, he was so interested in so many different things, and we were already reading books and, hanging out. He was just my little buddy, and so I was like, well, we can just kind of keep doing this. And we would try some, like, more formal things, like there's a free curriculum, ABC, Jesus Loves Me, and so we would do something every once in a while with that. But I was also, and we can get into this later, but I was also kind of told by some more seasoned homeschool moms that, you don't really have to start like formal right away. And I was really thankful for that, because I felt like I probably would have gotten burned out kind of early, and maybe even frustrated in the beginning. So anyways, that was kind of how we got into homeschooling, was just wanting to, just be kind of the main teachers in our children's lives, and spend time with them. So that's been great. But I kind of touched on this a little bit, but the next step, once you decided how to homeschool, choosing your curriculum, or how you were going to go about the actual, like, nuts and bolts of homeschooling.
But yeah, back when we started, again, I felt like there weren't like a ton of options. Just obviously the internet wasn't in play yet, so we had catalogs and books. They had curriculum fairs at the time we started, which were always a big deal. I think they're still probably a big deal. So yeah, it was a matter of, okay, what are the people doing that I know? And I actually, because I am a researcher, I actually looked at different philosophies of homeschooling, and what this fit with what we want to do, or what I feel like I'm able to do. And then, poring over catalogs. Lots of catalogs, yes. So that was kind of how, and then, I think we never completely stuck with any one thing.
Because even as,
as the longer you do it, and new companies form, and you find out more things, and there's just more available, and it's like, oh, I wish we had had that writing curriculum when my older kids were little, but yeah, you just try things and try to hang on to what works and get rid of what doesn't. So yeah, that's basically how we did it.
Yeah, I was overwhelmed by choosing curriculum.
Yes.
And at the time when we first started, we didn't have a lot of resources to put into buying like a whole grade's worth or a whole, you can buy, everything. So I was given a lot of material, and so I tried what I was given, and then I became a part of the home instruction program, and I was able to check out the teacher's manuals and then just buy the consumables, buy the workbooks, and so it cut down on the cost of a lot of the curriculum. And I know there is a lot of free curriculum out there too that is really good. I had to find what worked for me. But in the beginning, I didn't want to branch out and deviate from the curriculum very much. I would follow the lesson plans exactly.
Yes.
And so that was very time consuming.
Yes.
Especially when you get into multiple grade levels that you're teaching at one time, it's a little bit overwhelming, but the longer that you do it, you see what's important and what you are comfortable teaching.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like I relate to you in the sense that I was like a big researcher. Having been in education for a career for about 5 years, I was really excited to like research curriculum and learn about different philosophies of homeschool education. But then I got very overwhelmed too. So I just, I spent a lot of time poring over websites and catalogs too, and talking to people, and kind of settled on what they'd probably call like eclectic approach, which is kind of picking and choosing. I realized I'm very picky and didn't want like kind of what you're talking, like a box. They have what you can call like a box curriculum that says, here's second grade, everything you need, which is great. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But I was too picky, which I probably made it a lot harder for myself. Sometimes I'm like, why didn't I get the box? But anyway, so I came across a history curriculum that I loved. Found out it was along the classical style of homeschooling. So came across a book called A Well-Trained Mind, which lays out the philosophy of classical homeschooling. It's by Susan Weisbauer, and she gives lots of suggestions for each subject and just kind of tells you how you can execute classical homeschooling or classical education at home. And so I loosely follow that. I mean, I follow a lot of her guidelines, but I don't do things like teach Latin, or I don't follow it strictly. So anyway, that's kind of how I came to that. But I feel like I have elements of, there's lots of terms you hear, like Charlotte Mason and all different kinds, but probably if I had to pick one that I most follow, would be classical. So
I felt like I, again, really benefited from having seasoned homeschool moms around me. So I was able to just kind of look through curriculums and talk to people, and then we ended up selecting the same curriculum that Jason used when he was little, which is great. We were all about the box sets, and I loved that I could check off a box every day, and just, it's the idea of like being solely responsible for my child's education just seemed really overwhelming. So I appreciated like literally like, okay, read these bold words and like ask your child this question and then pull out this worksheet. And like for starting out, that was really helpful to me because I just felt like, okay, I am responsible, but this book is also like, this curriculum book is also responsible. And that worked out really well for my first child. His learning style and the curriculum that we like chose, it just really worked. Now, like our second child, like she's in first grade, and I'm seeing that her learning style is very different from my older one. And so that was one of my questions to you guys too. Joe, you kind of mentioned like if it wasn't working, you got rid of it. How long would you try something? And then like what would make you say, okay, this is enough. We're gonna try something else. And would you switch with like each of your kids for different things, and like even go back to other things? Or I feel like you touched, Selena, also on like multiple children at one time and how that kind of affected your teaching too. So if you guys could get a little bit more into how you would change curriculums and how you would adjust with different kids and personalities.
Yeah, and that's not a cut and dry thing, and
Yeah.
sometimes there's tears and sometimes it's my tears. And
Yes.
even after getting input and advice from, I remember doing a program where, we had a teacher assigned to us from somewhere in the United States, as part of our program, and being on the phone with her and having to close myself in the hallway so that I could hear and try to explain what my frustrations were when we weren't even meeting in person. And so some of that was really frustrating. And then you get into, is it parenting issues or discipline issues and things like that. But our first child, he basically taught himself to read. I'm so glad we had him first. He made it so easy, And then Nathan, bless his heart. He's just your typical not being able to sit still at 5 years old kind of boy. And most of my children were somewhere along that line. But having to differentiate between, okay, is it just them? Is it a discipline or parenting issue? Is it that I'm trying to be too rigid with this says this, but this is not working? So for us, it wasn't any hard and fast kind of thing. And sometimes it would be, okay, let's try things differently. You do not have to sit in your chair while we do phonics. You can stand up, you can jump up and down, as long as you say the words after me, sort of thing. And so there was a lot of that, and even learning to read my children in the moment, because as soon as the lip starts quivering or you can tell they're hitting a wall, and you're just, it's time to do something else. And so I don't have any hard and fast rules for how we decided when to change and stuff, but a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, unfortunately.
Well, and I think sometimes until you have taught it, you don't know if that is going to be a curriculum that you feel comfortable teaching.
Yeah.
And that really, because I think that the teacher has to be more excited about teaching than the kids are.
Yep.
Or
Right, yeah.
Yes.
So if I think the curriculum is boring, then that's going to be conveyed to my kids too. This is boring. We just have to get through it. No, it has to be exciting. So I have to be excited about it. So it has to be something that I enjoy teaching. And so it has taken me years to find curriculums that I enjoy teaching. But I have had a relationship with our home instruction program, and the teachers that I have dealt with, the supervising teachers, have been so insightful and so helpful in telling me, it takes a few years before you feel comfortable changing things. Typically, it takes parents a few years into homeschooling before they're like, you know what, this just isn't working for us. We need to throw this out and start doing what my child needs, because they aren't learning this is too hard for them, it's too fast-paced, or it's too slow-paced, and it's dry, and so we need to mix it up. And I think that just takes trial and error, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think like you were saying, it's hard to know if it's like more of an attitude or a character issue with your children or yourself. And just like if you kind of are like, we don't like this anymore, let's pick this thing. We don't like this anymore. You will be changing every year, because every year there's difficulties, or something that was easy with one child is more difficult, and it's hard to discern if that's just their learning style, not like as in they need a whole new curriculum, just like maybe math is always hard for this child, I guess is more what I'm saying. Like they're more of a creative child, or so I have had that a little bit of trouble with that with one of my children. It's like, is this math really difficult because of the curriculum, or is it because this child just is going to be a little more challenged with math no matter what we choose? And I'm leery to switch quickly because every math curriculum is different, and I don't want to be like, all this stuff she already knows is, like going over that again, and then things she hasn't learned. So yeah, I think, and I agree with what you said too, is exactly what I was going to say. I just think you have to be excited as a parent, as a teacher, about what you're teaching. And so if you can get excited about something, and then obviously sometimes there's learning difficulties and things, and then ask for help and ask people and get help. It's okay. And I have had to change a few things over the years, and I am not a quitter. Like I am like, I chose this when we were first grade. Exactly. I paid money. I researched for 30,000 hours or whatever. We're doing this. So it was hard for me to say, okay, we're switching, and it's been so good, so good.
Yeah.
So just taking time to I have a few friends that maybe like quickly change, and then they get stressed out and their kids are stressed out. And then there's the other side of times where maybe you should change a little earlier.
Yeah.
So great answer for you.
Thank
Good luck.
No, that's great. One of the encouraging things in hearing you all talk is that, like, overwhelmingly I see that, and I've learned through just my short time homeschooling, is that homeschooling isn't just school at home. It's so much more than that, and you really can be excited about it, which is like interesting to think about, that you could choose a curriculum and teach your child math, and it could be really fun, and you guys could have a good time together doing that. What are some really encouraging moments or memories or just bits of advice that you would have for people considering homeschooling and just thinking of just all the daunting things ahead of them? What would be, some things to really just say, this has been really great, and it's kind of kept me going all these years of homeschooling.
I'm hearing a few different questions in there.
Yes.
Things to think about, is like, okay, why do I want to do this? Because that's what you're going to need to go back to on the days when it's hard.
Yeah.
Is this something that, for people who of faith, is this where God has led you? Is this something you're in agreement with your husband?
Yeah.
Because you're going to need that support, even if you're the one, even if as the mom or whichever parent is doing most of the homeschooling or the actual teaching. Do you have that support? Also, what am I willing to either give up or put on hold for a while? Because I don't know, maybe some people are able to do it all. And I have found that is not the case. What sacrifices are you willing to make? Because if you're a stay-at-home parent, that means, your income is limited. Also, your availability to do other things is limited. For me, it was important to teach my kids just basic life skills, not only for them as they got older and could do those things, but so that I wouldn't feel like, what have I done all day? My house is a mess. There's nothing to eat. And I think we did math, So, it's part of a lifestyle. It's not just, we're doing what we're doing, and then homeschooling is attached on. So basically count the cost. And definitely worth it if you decide that it's for you.
Yeah, I think it comes back to why we first began homeschooling, because we knew that the time was short. Our kids might be out of the house in 18 years, and we wanted to make the most of the time. And we've had to make it priority. Like, I am a big project person. But once the school year is coming up, I finish all my projects, put everything on hold, and the school day takes precedence. And so after, it just becomes a part of our family's schedule, like it does with any family who drops their kids off at school. The school day is a big chunk of our schedule, and so we make the schedule work for our family. What works for our family might not work for your family, and if something's not working, then we try to change it so that it is priority. But
thinking about like being overwhelmed with picking curriculum and that being a huge seeming like part of this conversation, I brought a quote from Sarah McKenzie, who wrote Teaching from Rest, and she says we start looking at homeschooling methods and curriculum plans more than we look at our children. We forget we're teaching children, not books. We're teaching humans, not lesson plans. So just remembering like the curriculum is like a tool to teach your children. You don't have to be a slave to curriculum. Your days can look different, and kind of as someone else touched on, I think like at first you think it has to be like public school at home, but over time, you kind of figure out your groove, and it becomes more of a beautiful thing that for your family. And learning to have like a great plan and be disciplined and organized, but also be flexible. Like making a plan, like planning, but knowing your plans are probably gonna like fall through at some point, like and not be perfect. So,
That's great.